Wasn't aware of what? The Hero of Ages is the third and final book of the first Mistborn trilogy. I'm going to talk about it right now. First it will be a spoiler-free section, then I'll give a spoiler warning and get into spoilers about this book. But of course there's going to be spoilers for the Final Empire and the Well of Ascension, because it's the end of the trilogy. It's the third book. So yeah. So Eden is Mistborn. He and Vin, who's also Mistborn of course, are the Emperor and Empress of the Final Empire, and basically the two most powerful people in the world. And it starts off immediately with a battle including Kolos, controlled by Elend, as they have discovered in the last book how to control these Kolos. And right at the start from this book, you're immediately put into this feeling of everything is ending and everything is changing, and there's a sense of pace through the whole book right from the beginning. So you're immediately right into it. So you're immediately thrown into the world and the problems and the motivations of each character and what needs to be done in this book. So Elend and his crew and his army and Vin of course are traveling through the Final Empire to fight the supernatural kind of godlike power that escaped the well when Vin saved Elend and turned him into a Mistborn. So by the end of the Well of Ascension, by the second book, some power escaped from the well, and that's bad, and they have to fight that power now. This power is called Ruin, very appropriate name, and Elend, Vin, and Sazed, and even more characters like Spook, who has a bigger role in this book, are also joining together to fight this power and to save the world still. And they are looking for clues in different places in the Final Empire to stop the apocalypse from happening and to get the world the way it used to be 1,000 years ago. So they want to end the suffering that's been happening for the past 1,000 years, caused by powers they still don't really understand by this point. So meanwhile, Vin is feeling guilty about killing the Lord Ruler, and this guilt is kind of growing with her, as she feels responsible for all the mess that is going on ever since. And she keeps thinking about his last words, about the warning that he gave right before he died, and keeps thinking, did I do a good job by killing him? So that's a very interesting concept to, in the first book, have this powerful enemy that you need to stop. And then later on you find out, well, maybe he wasn't that bad. Maybe he did some things. Yeah, well, he did bad things and everyone hated him, but he also did good things apparently, and now we're stuck with all the trouble that he has been fighting against. And that's also part of Elend's character in this book. He's actually trying to be a good ruler, a good emperor, without being a lord ruler. So he is basically conquering places, he is taking power in different places, he is fighting people who don't agree with him being in power, because in the city of Luthadel, Penrod is still king, there's still King Penrod, but Elend is now emperor, so he's above him, and he's the emperor of the whole Final Empire. So he's basically, by law, as powerful as the Lord Ruler used to be, but he doesn't want to be the Lord Ruler, and he has to make some very tough decisions that influence people's lives, or deaths even, and is still learning to be a good ruler, how to rule people, but also be a good person as a human being. So he's really afraid that even though he's trying to be a good ruler, he's really afraid people will see him as the Lord Ruler, as bad as the Lord Ruler. And it's very clear from the beginning that the world is falling apart. There are earthquakes, volcanoes erupting. The layers of ashes are becoming more thick, and there's still a daily mist that kills people. So now there's a bit more about the story. So there are two cities that are, two of the cities that they are going that have a bigger role in this book. And those cities are called Yurto and Vadrex. Sazed has become the ambassador for the Emperor, so he goes to different places to speak on behalf of Elend. Does that along with Breeze, who's still there of course, and Spook. And Sazed has his own personal problems. He's very shocked by the death of Tindwyl, and he kind of loses his religion. He's trying to make some sense, trying to make some meaning out of all these horrific events that are going on. And this kind of is a bigger thing in this whole book. Everyone seems to think we are fighting a losing battle. The world is ending, definitely, and we have no idea what to do, and more questions are coming, and everyone is trying to fight for the good thing, and nobody really knows what to do, and that makes for a very tense story in a good way, I think. But everything is answered by the end of the book, without getting into spoilers. And everything is answered from the very first book. The questions you might have, the answers are, it's all thought through. I really wonder what Sanderson's notes look like, because it's all so well connected, and it's all, this person finds that out and that person finds that out, so now they all know this when they meet it eventually. Or maybe you can think of things and the characters cannot know some things that you as a reader know. It's all very well crafted and interconnected. By the time you get closer to each conclusion, to each solution to a problem, you think, oh, it's probably going to be this, or maybe I think it's going to be like that, but they can't know that yet. And then it turns out to be something completely different, but still makes sense. And there are sacrifices made, but you don't know in which way or how or why until they actually happen. And it answers everything about the Lord Ruler, about the Inquisitors, about the Kandra, about everything, and everything stands with the magic system. It has all to do, it's all connected in some way. And it's basically, I feel like Sanderson first made the magic system and then decided to tell a story from that. Basically like how Tolkien created languages and told a story from that starting point. It is really clear that Sanderson really likes to puzzle with these rules that he created, with the rules of magic, and how he can shuffle them around. It's basically like he wrote his own laws first and then tried to find holes in the laws that he can play with. Sanderson really comes across as a really big fan of the genre fantasy, or of the idea of magic or supernatural things that have laws, that have rules. So all I'm going to say for now, before I go into the spoiler section, expect a very satisfying ending, a beautiful ending as well, very good story, a very great book. Now starts the spoiler section. So if you have not read The Hero of Ages, click away right now, because I'm gonna start with the spoiler talk right now. So first, a short recap. What is the Hero of Ages? The prophecy was that the Hero of Ages was supposed to save the world from the so-called deepness. And he was supposed to do it by going to the Well of Ascension and gain power from the Well of Ascension. He was supposed to do this by finding and giving up the power from the Well of Ascension. Somehow the prophecies were changed, and instead the powers called Ruin were released, and that's what Vin does when she tries to save Elend. There's another force called Preservation, and that force has been keeping Ruin in the Well of Ascension all this time. And Preservation is the opposite of Ruin. So ever since Ruin was released, the amount of earthquakes raised, and there's more ash falling, and the volcanoes are erupting. That's all because of Ruin had the power to do that ever since he was released from the Well of Ascension. The same way that when Elend and Vin figured out how to control the Colossus by their Mistborn powers, they were only able to do that because Ruin let them. So they would think they would be more powerful. So this good guy called Lord Ruler was prepared for the incident that might happen, for the fact that Ruin maybe could escape or be released from the Well of Ascension. So he prepared, so in different places, different cities, he made these caverns with all the food stored away and the drinks. And he left notes with how to defeat Ruin. So Elend and Vin are looking for these places, trying to get some evidence or some hints about how to save the world. Meanwhile, the mist is getting more mysterious and mysterious as the number 16 pops up every time. There are 16 people killed, or 16% of people were getting sick or dying, something like that. 16 comes back multiple times, and some people try to make some relations between them. For example, Vin used to be 16 years old when she first became a Mistborn, all that kind of stuff. So they keep thinking, well, maybe the mists aren't that random at all, and maybe the mists aren't that of a normal, natural appearance. They get the feeling that something or someone is controlling all of this. So I really like the twist, basically almost at the end of the book, that they find out that the mists aren't actually killing people, but creating Mistborns. It's the same way that the nobility, as told in the Final Empire, traumatized their children, trying to make them snap, trying to make them Mistborn. And the mists basically works the same way. There's so much going on, and we discover so much about Hammerlurgy, how to control the Kandra or the Colossus, what the Lord Ruler all did to keep in control. And Hammerlurgic is basically the magic system that was invented or so the Lord Ruler could control them. So the Inquisitors he could control, so he had these powerful people. The Kandra he could control, so he can spy on other people. And that way there are many other things the Lord Ruler did to keep this world safe the way he wanted it, and could control it and still keep it safe from ruin. Elend and Vin all learn about this through trial and error when they have a conflict with Yeoman, when Vin is captured by Yeoman, and then Ruin appears to her, and she thinks first that it's Reen, and then Reen kind of looks like the name of Ruin. But then Ruin appears to her, and Ruin reveals that he actually controls the Colossus the whole time, and the Colossus attack Elend and Yeoman and makes Elend and Yeoman work together, but they are in conflict as well, so it's kind of a cool twist. And then Vin distracts Ruin's attention by going to Luthadel, and she has to fight Marsh, who is basically as powerful as the Lord Ruler at this point, and there are other Inquisitors. And Vin tries to figure out how she can control the mists, as she has experienced. For example, when she was fighting the actual Lord Ruler, she could take power from the mist, and that's how she survived. And she's trying to figure out how that worked. And she thinks it happens because it happens when she is almost killed or in very grave danger. But that's not the case. And she almost dies again, but then something happens, and then she takes the power from the mists and becomes preservation, as it becomes this godlike thing. So she goes from the very beginning of the series as a street urchin with nothing, to a Mistborn in an underground group, to the girlfriend of a king, to a empress, to a god. So yeah, that's kind of epic. And then she dies at the end, but it's a beautiful death, I gotta say. So she can control the whole world basically, and she and Ruin are basically fighting, and Ruin is messing things up in the world, and she's trying to fix it, but accidentally she creates a tsunami and many people died. Oops, okay, didn't mean that happened. And then what she actually does is, because Preservation and Ruin are in sort of a balance, but also the opposites, she kills herself as Preservation and thereby destroying Ruin. And by the end of the book, after a whole lot of things are happening with the Kandra as well, and Elend and Sazed and whatever, and Spook, what he does, Spook is great. Spook is a kind of a superhero. I also always thought while reading about the magic tips and what Mistborns were doing, it's kind of like they're superheroes in a way. But then I read about what Spook is doing in this book, and he literally saves people from a burning building. So yeah, I really like Spook, but I'll get to that later. But and then by the end of the book, Sazed finds his body and Elend's body and Ruin's body, apparently. He takes the power, and he realizes at that point the Hero of Ages is the one with arm bracelets or with rings on his arms, something like that. And Sazed realizes the Hero of Ages must be a feruchemist, as he is. And he takes the power, and then he becomes the godlike thing, and he solves everything, and the whole world turns to normal. The whole world turns into the very idea that Kelsier was trying to achieve and to spread among all the people. And there's grass and there's normal plants and whatever. And yeah, it's a great ending. So, but sadly, Elend and Vin die. But that's a good sacrifice. They actually died to achieve what they have always wanted, what they believed in. It's such a ride through this whole book, especially when you get closer to the ending. It's like, oh my god, I can't stop reading right now. So yeah, Spook. I really liked how he had a minor role in the Final Empire. He was barely even visible in the Well of Ascension. Now he has a much bigger part in the plans of Elend, as he is trying to save the people from Yurto. And he really starts from this shy boy, and in the Final Empire he gives Vin a handkerchief because he likes her, and he is very shy to talk about it to her, and Vin has no idea what you're doing. Becoming more of a hero, and he really looks up to the legend of Kelsier, and he hears Kelsier at some point in his mind as well, which is also a very interesting aspect, I think. But I really like his development as being a hero and trying to do the good thing, and he's shocked, and because he gets all these powers, he can burn pewter at some point, but then he's shocked to find out he was in power of ruin. He had a spike in his body. When he rips it off, he loses all his other Mistborn powers. So the interesting thing about him thinking about Kelsier, and he actually sees and hears Kelsier in his mind, and Kelsier tells him what to do. And the same way happens with Vin through the whole series, because Vin hears Reen all the time, and we always think it's, well, just our thoughts, just like how we ourselves remember people as talking to us in the past, and remember someone's advice, or someone who is a really big influence on our lives. But that's then basically when I find out what happened, that Ruin can actually, Vin has a spike in her ear as well, so Ruin can talk to her through that. So I thought, well, Ruin is sitting somewhere in a room with a microphone talking to everyone, and Vin hears him as Reen, and Spook hears him as Kelsier, and March hears him as well as Ruin. So March has gone full bad guy, all taken over by Ruin, and is the one who kills Kelsier at the end. Or no, he kills Edith at the end, I mean, sorry. So, yeah, there's so much going on, I can't even begin what to talk about anymore. So, I'm really enthusiastic about this book, and I rated it 5 out of 5. It was a great ending of this trilogy, of this book, and everything ties together, and the ending is beautiful. All these characters that have their troubles and their flaws, and they're trying to overcome that, and they succeed in different ways or fail in other ways, and yeah, it's great. And I really look forward to start reading the next Mistborn trilogies. I'm really curious about what the world looks like after all these events, how these characters will be remembered or won't be remembered. Definitely gonna read more Sanderson books, already have read more Sanderson books, and probably do some reviews on them as well. Did you like this video? Did you like this book as well? Or do you disagree with me? You can leave a comment right here below. You can hit on like, you can hit a subscribe if you want to see more of my reviews and talk about books. And you can follow me on social media. See the links here down below. And I will see you in the next review. Bye.